Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Port St. Lucie. I understand we have a new visitor from Washington. Is that the state or the district? State, long commute, nice. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the thousands listening at home. And let's begin our service with our opening song. It's not working. Oh, it's not plugged in. Thank you. I would invite you now to relax, sit back in your chairs, and consider these words from our prayer for inner peace. I open my heart and mind this morning to the presence of God that is within me and in everyone and everything, the one power and one presence. I let God's peace fill my being. In this presence, I am peaceful, poised, confident, and strong. I relax in God's loving care and release all my cares, knowing that God is holding me and sustaining me in all that I do. God's presence calms me, quiets the storms around me, and leads me to a place of perfect peace. As I center myself in that peaceful presence this morning, I let go of every concern and relax in the safety of God's love and in the love of those around me. I find Unity of Port St. Lucie a sanctuary of love and peace, and I am open and receptive to receive all it has to soothe my mind and soul this day. And so it is. Amen. Would you state with me our statement of faith? There is only one power and one presence in my life and in the universe, God the good, omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. And our values: Unity of Port St. Lucie encourages diversity and embraces the harmonious and creative pursuits of truth and knowledge in a safe environment to achieve balance and wholeness in the world. Well, this being the first Sunday of August, and the first day of August, it's happy birthday. We have, well, not only Pat, I hope she's watching. We can all sing happy birthday to the August babies. Any show of hands, any August babies in here this morning? All right, this is all for you, Pat. Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. All right, our first congregational song is Open My Eyes.
Wonderful King that shall and
This morning, our daily word will be read to us by Shenetta.
Good morning. Today's word is radiance. The Christ present within is my radiant source of good. On a clear day, when a stray cloud passes across the sun, I notice the suddenly diminished light. Then looking up, I see brilliant rays of sunshine surrounding the cloud. Instead of hiding the sun, the cloud helps me to see and appreciate the sun's radiance. As the sun lights the earth and is the source of its energy, the Christ, the divine presence within me, is my light and the source of energy thing that I need in order to live brilliantly and joyously. When light is passing cloud, an obstacle or challenge along my path may seem to dim my Christ light. I respond by looking up, by raising my point of view. I am reassured and strengthened, knowing that the divine radiance is shining as brightly as ever. No cloud can dim the divine light in me. In John 1:5, it says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not come over it." Let us all repeat together the affirmation for today. The Christ presence within me is my radiant source of good. Let us now prepare for meditation by singing Surely the Presence.
I invite you now to close your eyes and relax. I bring to you this morning a meditation on the spiritual power of will. And I invite you to take these words in quietly as your own. In the brain's frontal lobe lies the energy vortex for the power of spiritual will. I concentrate my attention on this area, responsible for executive functioning, such as my ability to focus verbally and visually, to remember and make connections between ideas, and to choose. I shine the silver light of will throughout the front of my brain, across my forehead, and up to the crown of my head. I clear my busy brain of preconceived notions and all false imaging. Centered in spiritual will, I affirm my capacity to choose. Guided by my companion powers of understanding, wisdom, and imagination, I am able to draw from infinite possibilities one divine idea. This one divine idea seems to catch hold of me. It appears as my powerful desire. It becomes rooted in my awareness. I affirm my capacity to commit to a path ahead. I will be a blessing. I will live as the light of the world. I set upon a course of action that supports my choice. I live in integrity, honoring my commitment and holding myself accountable to do what I say I will do. I affirm my willingness. I am willing. I am willing to remain attuned to the source of all good. I allow life to unfold. I acquiesce to the truth, and I cooperate with the impulse of the divine. I am willing to be centered, unruffled, as time passes and light shines on my path. I am willing to courageously decide what I will have, do, and be. I am willing to boldly reach for my next goal. I am willing to stretch beyond perceived limits. I am willing to walk with confidence into my future. I am willing to risk being vulnerable in love. I am willing to listen without feeling threatened. I am willing to experience the joy of living. I am willing to be purposeful, to know I am divine. Divine will is my spiritual name and nature. I am willing to be the light of the world wherever I am and whatever the circumstances. I invite you, friends, to take those bold proclamations into the silence together. And then very slowly and gently and lovingly, begin to return your attention to the outer, to this room, this time, this place, right here, right now. Having centered yourself, having acknowledged the power of spiritual will, open your eyes when you're ready and join together, singing about the bond of love. Good morning. Wow, you look good. You look good. And welcome to our area friend. She's only been here for a couple of days and she's looking for a home, and she's from a Unity Church in Washington, and we are delighted to have her join us here. So today I want to talk about the power of will, because as all of you know by now, Unity's annual theme is the 12 powers, and each month we're featuring one of them. The month of August is about the power, the spiritual power of will, and I want to talk about it a little bit. If you look at the slide, you'll see that the center of that power is the center of our brain. The color for that power is silver, and there are silver stones in the back in a bowl if you want to take a silver stone with you today to put on your altar to represent the power of Bill. And Bill? Hi, Bill. The power of will. And as a matter of fact, I think every color we've done so far is in a bowl back there. So if you haven't been keeping up, help yourself. And the apostle, the disciple after whom Charles Fillmore named the power of will, identified the one with whom he identified the power of will, is Matthew. So will. When I think of will, when I realized that was the power for this month, and the talk began to percolate, because that's what happens. It begins to percolate and ideas come from here or there, and then it settles down, and then it'll percolate some more. It's fun. I love the process of creativity. So trust me, it's one of the highlights of my life to be a vessel for that kind of activity. So as the talk was percolating, one of the first words that popped in my head, very first words, was willfulness. Willfulness. I associated the word will with that word, willfulness. And I didn't like it, because I don't know about you, but in my lifetime, that word has taken on lots of baggage. It has negative connotations. I can remember the elders in my family when I was much younger talking about certain children in our family as being willful. And they said it with a scowl on their faces. So it wasn't a good thing. It was not a compliment. Have you ever known a willful child? Have you ever been a willful child? Stubborn, headstrong children. Have you ever sat near one on an airplane when they're acting out? I have, several times. In fact, if I see one checking in, I just pray. Put them many, many, many rows from me. Thank you, God. Have you ever been in line at a checkout counter and had one near you and watched the mother or the father trying to handle the situation? I have. Lots of times. Most 2-year-olds are willful for a time, right? They have that reputation. They call them the terrible twos for a reason. That's when it would appear that willfulness raises its nasty little head the most. I love this little cartoon. You know, it's hard to believe they're going to grow out of it when they're in the midst of it, as I recall. Some children remain willful for years after the twos. I had a niece, bless her heart. She's a grown woman now, very successful woman. And if you're listening today, Jenna, excuse me for telling on you a little bit, but you know it's true. When she was little, she had a thing about not wanting to try on a new pair of shoes. And I can remember my mother and I taking her to a shoe store and dealing with it because her mother was tired of it. This child, as soon as the clerk would come near her with a new pair of shoes, she would start to kick and scream and carry on like crazy. And she wasn't too. Far as I know, she's grown out of that. Only her husband could tell us. And then some adults are characteristically willful. Have you ever known one? I have. Yeah. And then, of course, each of us is willful sometimes, aren't we? Yeah. I did a little internet search around the word willful, and I came across this website, which is fascinating. It's called itherapy.com. Small I, capital T, itherapy.com. It's a website for mental health practitioners who are setting about starting their own practice. And they offer all kinds of free support, including lots of advice. It's a really remarkable website. And never in a million years did I know that practitioners starting a practice could go to the internet and get that kind of assistance. It's really made me feel good. So when it popped up because they dedicate a whole page to the word willfulness. Their definition is this: willfulness is refusing to accept the reality we're faced with and using our energy to rail against it. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? That's exactly how I would define willfulness. Well, I wouldn't do it that well, but now that I've seen it, I'm using it. The same page goes on to provide some very practical advice about both how to identify your willfulness and then how to shift it. And it's so interesting, so practical that I want to share it with you. So it starts out by saying this: anger is a normal range of human emotions. Normal. We all must experience it at some point in time. However, if you notice anger creeping up, for example, when you deny yourself that cigarette when you've decided to stop smoking, or the voice of that petulant 2-year-old demands a piece of cake in spite of the fact that you're not supposed to have sugar, those are signs of willfulness. So here's what you do. First, recognize it. Well, that's true for everything, isn't it? The first step toward healing anything is to acknowledge it, isn't it? So first, recognize that you're being willful. You can't change it if you ignore it. Words of wisdom, right? Second, don't beat yourself up. Really good advice, friends. We're all willful at one time or another. It's part of being human. Third, recognize you have a choice to continue to be willful about a situation or change. Sometimes we have to practice radical acceptance. I had a note from someone this week relative to the message about wearing masks again today, and it was a very supportive note, and they ended by saying, "It is what it is. It is what it is." Yeah. Radical acceptance is sometimes the best way to go. It's pretty radical to be able to accept what is sometimes. And then finally it says, recognize that radical acceptance is a process. It's a process, not an end goal. You may need to radically accept over and over again until it becomes part of your DNA. I love those tips. But enough about willfulness. That's not the topic of my talk today, honest. I want to talk about will. But the will I'm talking about today isn't personal will, so let me take you back to this slide, which characterizes will as a spiritual gift. Personal wills, by the way, is the one that's behind all those New Year's resolutions we made. Exercising personal will without spiritual understanding is like driving in the dark without headlights. Will of a strictly personal nature can be destructive, of a strictly personal nature. Our master teacher knew that. In the New Testament, he says it over and over again. Here are just a few examples of words to live by as far as I'm concerned. From Luke chapter 22, verse 42, "Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." That's a pretty powerful statement. Have you ever used that, at least quietly, to navigate your own issue? I have. How about this one? From John, the mystic, chapter 5, verse 30. Jesus speaking, "I can do nothing on my own. As I hear, I judge." Admitting his humanity as far as I'm concerned. As I hear, I judge. "But I seek to do not my will, but the will of him who sent me." Powerful. And finally, again from John chapter 6, verse 38, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of my Father." Like Jesus, we want to practice putting our own personal will aside, I believe. I certainly do. Practice putting my own personal will aside and exercising my spiritual will, exercising your spiritual will. Spiritual will, according to Unity, and this is a Unity slide for the month, spiritual will is choosing, committing, and willing to express our Christ nature. Right? Our Christ nature. I talk about that a lot, so I know you know what I'm talking about. Spiritual will is choosing to express it, committing to express it, and then being willing to express it. Charles Fillmore's in the book called The 12 Powers taught us that exercising our spiritual will necessitates our using the spiritual power of understanding. Spiritual power of will can't exist without the spiritual power of understanding. They go hand in hand. It's like love and marriage. Remember that? Love and marriage. Remember, understanding spiritually means understanding what you really are. Understanding spiritually means understanding what you really are, what power you possess. How leading with your Christ nature makes all the difference in your life, all the difference in the world, therefore. Will without understanding leads to error thoughts. We're created free to choose. I know you've heard the term free will over the course of your lifetime. It appears as though we're created with this ability to choose, the freedom to choose. So we get to choose will with or without spiritual understanding. When we choose without, we're dealing with a strictly personal will. When we choose with, we're dealing with spiritual will. Make sense? You see the difference there. Mr. Fillmore developed his work called The 12 Powers between the years of 1909 and 1920. And I mention those dates for a reason. And we know that because at the foreword of the book called The 12 Powers, there's a little explanation which tells us that the book is based on a series of articles that he began to publish around 1909 in what was then the Unity magazine. And then he would publish another article and another and another. So between 1909 and 1920, he published a series of articles that ultimately came to be called The 12 Powers. And if you read them carefully, and you can go to the archives and do that, you can see how his own understanding of the powers evolved. You can read it. You can see evidence of it until it gets to the book that we have today, which wasn't published, by the way, until 1999. So for a very long time, when people stood up and spoke about the 12 powers, they referred to those original articles. In that book, which is a compilation of something he wrote over 100 years ago, friends, which is interesting, over 100 years ago, I believe is the most succinct, instructive, informative bit about spiritual will that I've found to date. And I have looked, and I continue to look to see what's out there. This is from Mr. Fillmore over 100 years ago. He says, "It's error for anyone to submit his will to the control of any personality, including his own. The personal exercise of will by personal understanding is short-sighted and selfish. Hence, it's never safe to allow oneself to be led by the direction or the advice of another. Practice the presence of God until you open your consciousness to the inflow of the omnipresent, all-knowing mind. Then affirm unity with that mind until you know and fully realize the many avenues of wisdom, just what you should do. Through the many avenues of wisdom, just what you should do. This acquirement of a knowledge of the divine work is not happening in an instant. It results from patient and persistent spiritual study, prayer, and meditation. Even Jesus, with his exalted understanding, found it necessary to pray. All who have found the peace and power of God have testified to the necessity of prayer. One should not intellectually will to bring about results. The difference between the personal will and the universal will can be known by one who practices thought control in the silence. Later in the same book, I came across a sentence that jumped off the page at me. It really did, friends. It kind of stopped me in my tracks. I hadn't noticed it before. And I've looked at that book lots of times. So I want to share it with you because it made me stop and reflect for a moment. It says this. Now, this is over 100 years ago. He says, quote, "In the present state of race consciousness, all people use the intellectual will to excess. The remedy is daily relaxation, meditation, and prayer in the present state of race consciousness." Now, I don't know what race consciousness looked like at the turn of the century. I truly don't. And I didn't take the time to look it up. Some of you may have some ideas. You may reflect on that and recall your history. History was not my favorite subject, so I don't. I don't know what was going on in the world around the turn of the century. But I wonder how appropriate that statement is for us today. And I can't help thinking it's even more appropriate today than it was then. Friends, let me read it again. In the present state of race consciousness, all use the intellectual will to excess. How much time do you spend, or do you hear others spend, discussing the current news, the current state of things, speculating about what's going to happen next? Intellectual will used to excess. Remedy is not healthy. Not healthy for you, not healthy for me, not healthy for us. The remedy, daily relaxation. Just that, daily relaxation means set it aside for a period. Meditation means get quiet and prayer. Yeah. It's imperative, friends, that we remember to exercise our spiritual will. And see, when we decide to do that, we're exercising our spiritual will. You see that? You're understanding the importance of doing it. You're understanding your true nature. You know you have the tools to do it. You understand why to do it. You understand the good that comes of it, and you choose to do it, and then you do it. Wow. That's spiritual will. There's a piece of good news about that, and that is that it seems to me that when we exercise our spiritual will, I know, I've just read to you, I've shared with you the fact that lots of people say you can't do it without your spiritual power of understanding. I believe you can't do it without all your spiritual powers kicking in. Think about it. When you exercise spiritual will, that means you're deciding to express your Christ nature. You're involving your power of love, your power of joy, your power of peace, your power of wisdom, your power of divine order, your power of understanding, and so on. Every single solitary one of them. Spiritual will's the CEO, friends. Truly, it is. It's in charge. But it's no good without all the others, without our understanding of all the others. Spiritual will's the big cheese. Look, it shows up in the Lord's Prayer. You know how important to our culture the Lord's Prayer is. The prayer that Jesus gave in the New Testament that's recited by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people every single Sunday and many, many, many times during the week. Do you ever use it yourself? I do. I do. Frequently, actually. Remember these words? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right? There it is. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In unity, we don't define heaven as a place. We define it as a state of consciousness, as an environment. Heaven's the universal ideal. It's an environment that is infused with life and love and peace and goodness and joy. And we all experience it constantly. Moments sometimes, for days sometimes, and maybe sometimes for weeks on ends. I don't know your personal business, but I know you've had the experience of heaven. We will our experiences and our reactions into creating that kind of place, friends. We're in charge. Remember, will is our CEO. We create that kind of place for ourselves, and then the ripple effect is profound because it affects everyone else around us and beyond, actually. We envision and live out the unifying power of divine love when we do that, friends. In a book that I've referred to through this series pretty consistently, written by Reverend Linda Martella Whitsitt, who, by the way, has moved to Florida, albeit the other side of the state, but down the road sometime, I'd like to invite her to come over and hang out with us and do a Sunday talk and maybe a workshop, because she's just she's a real light worker. She's an incredibly wise little lady and a lot of fun. She is the executive director of Silent Unity. So she wrote a book about the 12 powers called Divine Audacity. And I want to read to you from it because I think it's really, really valuable, important. It drives spiritual power, the idea of spiritual power home for me, and therefore I assume for you as well. She says the choosing aspect of spiritual will has been referred to as free will, a power long recognized as inherent in us. We all get to choose among infinite possibilities. One divine idea makes sense to us. It feels right. We catch hold of it, sense its potential, say yes to ourselves, and all that sets into motion the outpicturing of that choice in our life. I lived in Daytona Beach, friends, for a while, and I had a view of the ocean. Now, I wasn't on the ocean. I was one block removed, but there was nothing obstructing my balcony, 7th floor balcony view from the ocean, and so I had the luxury of being able to look out over the ocean, and I loved it. I did. To me, it was all inspiring to see the vastness of it. It humbled me, and that was good, kept me grounded in the smallness of myself in some ways. It reminded me of the vastness of the earth and the vastness of the power of nature, especially when it would churn up and a storm would be coming. But still, that ocean view didn't speak to my soul. It didn't. I wanted it to. It was supposed to. Everybody who came in and looked at my place thought it did, but it didn't. The truth is it didn't. And yet I love water. I'm a water sign. I love water. Water makes me feel good. But it wasn't the ocean that I longed for. And then I remembered that my earliest memories include being at the edge of a trout stream with my father, going for minnows and kicking rocks over and putting a net down and catching them, and then going fishing with him. I remember taking my daughter out on a lake in Canada and teaching her how to fish. I remember her utter amazement that her mother knew how to do that, how to put a worm on a hook and reel it in and all that stuff. I had my own rod and reel. Yeah, all of it. My earliest memories had to do with water. I've known my whole life that I needed to live on it, right? Fast forward, I decided to come back to Port St. Lucie for a whole host of reasons. And in my head, I have this checklist of what I want my house to look like. Not necessarily look like, but what it needs to have for me to work. Because I've earned the right to do that. I've lived long enough. And the first day I walked in, I opened that front door and looked straight through to the pond I'm on. And I knew I was home. Water. I made a choice a long time ago. I made a choice, and on some level I committed to it. I didn't fret over it. I didn't go out and try and make it happen. And it did. Yeah. Choice. Choice. That's what choice can look like sometimes. The second aspect of will that Reverend Linda talks about in her book is commitment. Commitment. Because of all the infinite possibilities that there are, we have to choose one at some point in time. Commitment keeps us on a particular path. From her book, let me share what she has to say about this. She starts out referring to the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 13 through 14, where it says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction, and there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life, and there are few who find it." Fundamentalist interpreters, she says, of this Bible passage suggest that the message is about heaven and hell. That is, you'll go to heaven if you follow the strict precepts of your Christian religion, and you'll go to hell if you don't. Consider instead, she says, the wisdom in this passage regarding the way we're living right here and now. Jesus suggests that our life energy becomes scattered when our attention is unfocused and aimless. Have you ever been there? I have. Leading to self-destructive action. The narrow gate indicates selective attention. The hard road admits the human challenge of remaining centered and returning to the path when we detour. What's the narrow gate? Well, for Christians, the narrow gate is devotion to Jesus and his teachings. For Taoists, it's the Tao. For unity people, it's prayer and meditation, study. For yoga practitioners, it's asana, pranayama, bhakti, seva. For humanists, it's the path of human decency and generosity. For all of us, the path is the plan we discern as the route to fulfilling our purpose. Getting into the path, getting onto the path, committing harnesses spiritual power. The spiritual forces of creation are unleashed. We free our brains from vacillating unproductivity. The energy that earlier disappointed in indecision now is being directed to the path. Commitment is the sustaining power of will, spiritual will. All of us, myself included, need this reminder right now. All of us need this reminder right now, including myself. Thank you, God. The third and final aspect of spiritual will is willingness. Willingness. Remember willfulness, friends? I talked about that in the beginning. Well, willingness is the antidote for willfulness. Willingness is the antidote, the opposite, the cure for willfulness. But the word willingness doesn't carry the kind of strength that I want it to. And I remembered as soon as I read that quote, a book that I read years ago and some study I did in person with Dr. Maria Namath, who wrote a book called Mastering Life's Energies. She says this in her book. Try this out. Say, I have willingness out loud. Now, I'm going to ask you to do that. The phrase is, I have willingness. I want you to say that out loud. I have willingness, okay? Now say, I am willing. I am willing. Which statement gave you more of a sense of possibility and promise? Which had more energy attached to it? I am willing. Powerful statement, partly because you've got the I am going on. I am willing is the most potent statement, she says, that you can ever make. I can't disagree with that, friends. It may well be. It signifies, she says, that right here and right now, you're ready to go ahead with your life without being forced to. You are voluntarily participating, no longer being dragged into your life's path, leaving your heel marks in the dirt. Here's where the nevertheless comes in. Nevertheless means despite any situation or circumstance, all the same, even so. To put nevertheless in front of I am means that even with my doubts, my fears. Anybody have fears right now? Come on. Doubts? Judgments? Evaluations? Attitudes? I am so guilty. States of mind, points of view. Even with the usual limiting internal chatter going on in our heads that tells us to turn back, wait a while and retreat, I'm saying yes to my life's adventure. I am willing. Nevertheless, I am willing is even more powerful. You see? When those doubts come up, when that negativity comes up, when that judgment comes up, Whatever it is, how about practicing, nevertheless, I am willing to let that go. Nevertheless, I am willing to release that. Yeah. Good stuff, friends. Good stuff. I hope it is for you, because it certainly is for me. At the end of the day, I think that we're ready. We're absolutely ready, and we're here to express the maximum amount of goodness, Christ consciousness that we can. We're here. We're ready. We're doing it. We're supporting each other in it. We're making a commitment to it. Our statements, our core values, our vision, they all attest to it. And that's a good thing. It's a great thing, actually. At the end of the day, we want to use our spiritual power to do that at our highest level, the highest level that we're capable of in any moment. I hope I provided you with some tools that you can use. You can add to your tool chest to help you do that. Carolyn Mace is another master teacher I've followed over the years, and she dropped off my radar for a while until my prayer partner brought her back to my attention this week by telling me about an event that Carolyn was involved in. And so I jumped online and listened to just a piece of it. And I was in the throes of letting this talk percolate, and I heard her talk about the power of will. No accident, friends. Yeah. And within that talk, she defined spiritual will as the ability to redirect and control our nature. I love that definition. Spiritual will, our ability to redirect and control our nature. That would be our human nature. Let's commit. Let's commit to using our spiritual will to express our Christ nature in the world, friends. So I have an affirmation for you. I didn't put it on a slide, for which I apologize, but I can say it and you can repeat it after me. I use my power of will to live my life as the fullest expression of my Christ nature that is possible for me. Let me say it again. I use my power of will to live my life as the fullest expression of my Christ nature that is possible for me. Let's do it. I use my power of will to live my life as the fullest expression of my Christ nature that is possible for me. Thank you, friends, and God bless you.
Thank you, Linda. Good message this morning. Lots of practical advice to take into the week and beyond. Appreciate it. Thank you. And now we're going to be blessed by a song from our music ministry, One Moment in Time.
Each day I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart, fought every game to taste the sweet. I face the pain. I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. time for less. I've laid the plans, now lay the checks here in my hands. Give me one moment in time when I'm more than I thought I could be. When all of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers, they're all up to me. Just give me one moment in time when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment of time, I will feel eternity. You're winner for a lifetime. If you seize that one moment in time, make it shine. Give me one moment in time when I'm more than I thought I could be. When all my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers are all up to me. Give me one moment in time when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment of time, I will be free. I will be
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Linda. Beautiful. I would invite you now to take offerings and gifts. Hold them in your hands and repeat with me our offering blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I love to give. I'll circulate the plates through the sanctuary. And as the plates are winding their way through the sanctuary, we have a little bit of recognition to make. So Sherry, would you come up here?
I'll start it off.
Very good.
In a community this size, in a small spiritual community, in other words, with a part-time minister and no staff, no office from which to conduct business, we depend on a small group of people who give of their time and their talents at an extraordinarily high level. This community higher than any other I know, frankly. And so, as a board, we decided a couple of months ago to begin to acknowledge those people. Once a quarter, we're going to choose someone, and we're going to acknowledge the contribution that they make to what we do here. And when the board decided to do that, then the next question was, where shall we start? And this person's name came up, and there was no discussion. There was absolute unanimity. Everyone agreed, in other words, that this is where we're going to start. So we're going to create a wall, and Sherry and I this morning just looked around and decided that it'll go over there. So we're going to move that painting over here. That means we'll have two paintings over here, which is really cool. And we're going to create a wall, and we're going to call that wall Lightworkers, because that's what we all are. So we're going to acknowledge Lightworkers within our own community as we move forward. So Jeff and Sherry are going to put up a name over there on that wall with some letters that I found, and then we're going to take every Lightworkers photograph when we acknowledge them on any given Sunday, once a quarter, frame that photograph and start a gallery of Lightworkers, which I think is really cool, something we can all look at. So I'm going to ask the board president to make this presentation because her history with this person goes back a whole lot further than my own. So.
So in order to do this, I need Mr. Paul Shepard to please come forward.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, a lot of you knew Paul Shepard in the beginning because he always helped with Shepard and Green shows, build stages, do the videoing, all of that. Through him, we got to meet these wonderful young people that have become part of our church. And then, sometime a while back, you might remember COVID-19 happened and the whole country shut down. We needed a way to present the service to people, and we weren't quite sure how to do that. So, professional photographer, videographer, we said, can you help us get set up? And he said, sure. Okay, I'm thinking something a little more stable than like Blair Witch Project. You know, if I were doing it, it would look like this. So we come in, he's got how many cameras? 2 cameras, 3 or 4 screens. It was amazing. All set up, all ready to go. 10
It was
cameras.
only 3.
3, oh, see, it was more. And the cool thing about doing that, there were basically 5 of us here, because at that point, if you remember, the ministers were sending their talks. And so we could do second takes. If it messed up, Paul would just edit it for us. But a lot of time went into that, not only what we did here, but all the editing he did to get it ready to go. So then we reached phase 2. We can come back together again. Now we got another problem. We got to film in a different situation. Somebody, Mr. Paul Shepard, said, I can handle that. And so we have a totally different setup. And in case you don't know this, the man is OCD about the quality of the sound and the picture and everything. When I got here at 8:30 this morning, he was already here doing sound checks. So then someone had the wonderful idea of doing miracle moments. Paul Shepard said, I can help you with that. So every time this man has stepped up to the plate, he's done more than we could possibly dream of. And we just appreciate you so much and all that you have done.
Oh, my.
And I hope that this will be something that you can use. And when you do, you can think of Unity of Port St. Lucie.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have just a couple quick things. Not yet, John, sorry. Armand and Angelina are here next week. Saturday is the concert, 6:30. Then Sunday they'll be doing the service, and afterward they'll be doing a workshop. So this is not a commitment, but could I have a raise, like a hands of who might be thinking of staying for the workshop after the service next Sunday? Okay. Okay, that's all right. Also, Shepherd and Green this Friday are at Saints. Yes.
Are there tickets for sale for the concert, or is it a love offering? Love offering. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shepherd and Green are at Saints this Friday, but Saturday they're at Minero's, which they haven't been for a while. I'll get a table, so anybody who wants to go, I put it under Unity and Sherry, so, okay. Thank you. Wait.
Is the workshop going to be the flute thing or the meditation?
Okay, well, that's a question. Do you have a preference? How many would like it to be the flute workshop? If you were going, pretend you're going. Okay, and how many would prefer that it be meditation? Okay. I will let Armand and Angelina know that. Okay. And I'm sure I'll get an answer soon. Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Hayes, thank you.
Linda. She has something. Of course, come on up.
Oh my goodness. I just want to share something that my little sister, her name is Dr. Phyllis Harris. She's an educator. She's been educator for many years now. She's younger than me, but she also, her and some of her colleagues went over to Kuwait, and they taught over there for a couple of years before the pandemic. And she just wrote her first book, My VP Looks Like Me. And I think you can hit me up on Facebook, and I'll give you the site to go order it. I think it should be in our school for all students, because the way she wrote it, it's inclusive of everybody, of every race, nationality, whatever country you're from, and it's important for the kids to see that they can be and do anything that they want to do. And it's really, it's a good read for anybody. It's just short, but it's right to the point about different careers that you might want to choose to be involved in. And I'm just so proud of her. But Dr. Phyllis Harris, our little sister, her book, My VP Looks Like Me.
Okay. Moving through the announcements, our prayer chaplain this morning is Marvia. There you are. She'll meet with you if you want some affirmative prayer support over in our alcove. The Bible study, meeting on Monday evenings at 7 o'clock, continues. The spiritual discussion group. I got to pick up my niece at PBI Airport on Tuesday. Flight gets in at 7, so it's going to be kind of tough to make the discussion group. So I'm going to defer that till the 16th. That's my phone ringing. Nice. Chair yoga with Lana goes off on Wednesdays. Yeah. And we have the prayer circle on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. And we $20 suggested love offering. It's a great show. It really is. They're a lot of fun. Good laughs. Now, this is the new member Sunday, August 22nd, after service. And our miracle moments, if you're a little bit gun shy with the cameras, you can just do the audio, and I'm sure Paul will put together an adequate slideshow to support your comments. And Armand and Angelina will be doing the service next Sunday, followed by his workshop. And Mr. Shepherd needs to say a few words.
Choir rehearsal has been moved to Thursday at 6 o'clock for those interested. Thursday at 6. Don't come Wednesday at 6. You'll be by yourself. You can sing, but
Forever or just this week?
Going
well,
forward.
till further notice, right now things are changing in our schedule.
Yeah.
So for now, Thursday, 6. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Appreciate the help, the assistance, the music, the setups, the ministry. Mr. Shepherd back there. Thank you all. All right, let's stand and sing our peace song. Thank you all. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.